Good morning, everybody. Good morning. If you wouldn't mind taking your seats, we'd greatly appreciate it. We will begin shortly our District 2 candidate forum, which will be a conversation with one candidate, Chuck, and myself. To those who are here or just getting here now for this forum, or those who have stayed with us, first of all, thank you for being a part of the civic process. Now more than ever, it's important to be informed around candidates and elections, and we want to honor and recognize those who show up to participate in that process. So thank you all for being here. This was supposed to be a candidate forum for City Council District 2, which includes Diane, Desotelle, and Chris Adatte. Chris has not arrived or shown up. He had committed to being here, and so our first thought is we hope he's okay. But with that said, we honor the process and those who are here, and Diane is here with us, and so we're going to do our best to make this conversation work. And I don't know if this makes you more or less nervous, but we're doing it. It's happening. We're all in this together. I want to make sure to thank the Garden for hosting us. I want to make sure to thank the media for being here. We have a number of our media partners here. All those who are in elected office right now for being here. I see a number of them here with us today. And most importantly, you just heard from the publisher of the News Tribune, but our partners at the Duluth News Tribune for hosting this with the Chamber of Commerce for almost 20 years now, where we've been able to educate folks on the candidates who are running for office. If you are not here with us in attendance, but you know there are people who would like to see this, it will be broadcast later from the News Tribune. We'll be sure to share that out, and people will have a chance to view that. But with that in mind, I'm going to turn it over to Chuck.
Thanks very much, Matt, the News Tribune. On behalf of the News Tribune, we appreciate our partnership with the Chamber on these forums. We do these each fall for whatever races are happening each year. This year is local races, city council, school board races. And of course, there's probably no elected office that has more impact on our daily lives than city council and school board. Very direct, very important elections. It's frustrating that we don't get the turnout for those elections that we should. Diane, thank you so much for being here. If Chris shows up, if someone just wants to wave at us, so we'll let him come and join us. But for now, I want to thank Civility Certified for being here. You all got flyers on the way in, and thank you very much for your civility and for your respect and politeness. And also want to welcome the News Tribune. Our editorial board is here. These candidate forums do help to inform our endorsement editorials, which we will try to publish sooner than later. A number of years ago, we decided to start publishing them sooner as a way of trying to help lead a conversation instead of being like the last hammer at the end of the election cycle saying, here's to vote for. The idea is never to tell anyone who to vote for. The idea is to try to get you to think about the candidates and make informed choices on November 4th. So with that, Diane, we were going to give you a minute and a half, but I guess I think we've asked Kathy just not to worry about the timekeeping for this unless Chris shows up. Just start out by telling us a little bit about yourself, why you're running, and what your priorities would be if you're elected.
Thanks, News Tribune and Chamber, for holding this today. I'll try to stick to my time because I try to keep my answers brief and to the point. But thank you, everybody, for coming. A little bit about myself. My husband, Andrew Streitz, and I have lived in the same house in Duluth in the 2nd District since about 1998. We raised 2 children there who are proud graduates of the Duluth Public Schools. By profession, I'm a civil engineer, a land use planner, and an educator. I've worn a lot of hats. I was proud to work as the city's first natural resources coordinator, where I helped preserve thousands of acres of Duluth's public open spaces while making sure we grow our urban spaces responsibly. I spent time working for the state of Minnesota, where I managed work with Wisconsin, the tribe, and the EPA, cleaning up historic pollution and restoring habitat. And it isn't great seeing new development occurring along the river as an added benefit. I've owned a small business, doing contract work for local governments. I've taught in our schools as a licensed teacher. So, and as a volunteer, I've advocated a lot with CHUM and stepping on up to improve the lives of others and the health of our downtown. I've also volunteered with climate groups, working to help us adapt and mitigate to a changing climate, because science does matter, and climate is an important issue that we are facing. I've seen firsthand the importance of unions. I've been a member of 3, MAPE and ASME and the Duluth Federation of Teachers. I'm endorsed by the DFL, Women Winning. Mike Mayou, our former city councilor for District 2, has endorsed me, and AFSME and Indivisible, and State DFL Seniors Environmental Caucus. And I say that just because we hold values in different groups, and if those groups are important to you. So I look forward to having a discussion with you today, and I'm sorry Chris couldn't be here.
Thanks, Dan. Before we get to our prepared questions, let me just ask you to talk a little bit about District 2 specifically, your priorities overall for the city if you're elected, and also what your priorities would be for the district in particular.
Right. For District 2, I think that really one of the reasons I'm running is to support our economy by encouraging local investment and new markets. And District 2 has both our college campuses. We have the grade schools and middle schools. So we hold all of those levels of education. And it's going to be important for us to diversify our economy and fill out that downtown with businesses and commercial. We want to keep students here if we can, so that they can come in to get affordable living wages here. And we have 60% of our population isn't getting a living wage. And so I think that's going to be a really important aspect that we need to look at of what kind of jobs are coming here. Housing is also an issue in District 2 in particular. We deal with student housing, which is great, but a lot of those starter homes could be starter homes, but are often rented out to students. So I'd like us to consider about how we can maybe densify our student housing back on campuses where they are spending most of their time, and maybe trying to open up some of those houses for starter homes, because housing is a big issue. And we need to pay attention to our open spaces. That discussion needs to happen. 25% of our land is open space, and it's there for our health. It's there for our economy. People come to use these spaces, and it's there for ecological diversity, which is really, really important to who we are and what Earth is. And that balance is really important.
Thanks.
Thank you. Let's talk about the budget. One of the most important things that the City Council plays a role in. The mayor has proposed leaving vacant City Hall jobs open to help hold down a tax levy increase next year. How do you advocate for property taxpayers, and how would you ensure fiscal responsibility with a level of service from City Hall?
We are facing tough times. We know we're going to be losing federal funding. The state is different this year, too, and we're in a very tough budget cycle. I tend to be fiscally conservative. However, I really support businesses who come in and take a risk and put money out front, and hire folks to come here, and they take risks. And I am beginning to think the city needs to stand up and take a little bit more risk and work quicker and faster on getting infrastructure and housing in order. Chamber of Commerce have mentioned their 2 top priorities are housing and childcare, because if we don't have the housing, the businesses don't come. So it's kind of that chicken or egg, and it's the city's responsibility to have that infrastructure ready, to get that housing in order so that the businesses come in. So I would like to think that we can push things a little bit, and know that if we as a community say we need these things, we have to be willing to put ourselves out there, which means considering maybe having a levy that's going to help us get there faster, hoping that in the long run we can back off that levy and slow things down when we get those businesses in.
Thank you. Jeff?
Diane, with the budget challenges becoming more and more known, Duluthians have been advocating specifically for the library. Do you see the library as a core city service? Why or why not? And should it be immune from any budget cuts?
Thank you for that question. I appreciate it. I use the library all the time. I think that the library is really important to our community, not only our youngsters, but our elders and those seeking jobs. and needing technology to help them move forward. I also want to mention, besides the libraries, we don't talk about our parks and open spaces. And I missed that in the last conversation. And both these pieces are very important to who we are and what we do, and important to our economy as well. So I do not support defunding the library or our parks. However, I know we're going to have to find a balance in that. I just don't think those things should be the first to go, because if we lose those, we lose part of who we are as a social fabric. And there's a lot of opportunity to leverage the positions that are at the city, leverage their work with volunteers. There are people out there that want to do work in our open spaces that we can explain to them what type of work we need done and monitor it. And that's what I think staff is for, is doing that kind of work and then making their work worth 10 people, because 10 people are out there getting it done. And that helps build our social fabric.
Dan, can you expound on that? So with that vision of having the people who would like to volunteer and support the areas that they're passionate about, how does that integrate with union policies?
Thanks for asking that question. That's what I got to work on. I've been a union member. I think it becomes hard because they think we're taking away jobs. I'm not taking away union jobs. Those jobs are there. They're going to stay there. What we're saying is, how can those jobs work more effectively to build our social fabric, bring people together to get some of the work done that they don't need to do, the weeding, some of the gardening, some of the trail work, some of those monitoring, being somebody in the library that's reading to folks and helping folks be trained and understand how to do that. And you get joy out of the volunteer work, and the staff is getting joy about seeing people coming together and doing 3 times the work that they could be doing.
Thank you. Moving on to infrastructure. So in addition to the potholes that we have dealt with for a very long time and are topical for everybody, we have aging water and sewer lines and buckling sidewalks, and now we are doing very necessary lead water replacements in different neighborhoods, tearing them up. How do you foresee the city council better meeting the ongoing infrastructure needs in a very old city that was built for a population much bigger than we are now? So how can the city council help meet those growing infrastructure needs?
I think the city services have done a good job trying to prioritize the work they have with very little. We do have about $500 million in back work that needs to be done. I'm a civil engineer by trade. I get the pipes. I get the importance of clean water. Guess what? Every time you flush your toilet, you should thank the WLSSD for treating that water before it goes off into the river. We should all thank that. That's hard work, but it happens because we all pitch in together to make that happen. The prioritizing of how fast we get this infrastructure done is really been in the hands of staff, and I think they're doing a good job. I just think we need to pick up the pace. We are behind the 8 ball. We've let it go. It's kind of saying, I let my roof go, and guess what? It leaked, and now I've got a whole upstairs to fix. So the prevention didn't happen, and that's why we need to play catch up. I think the idea of prioritizing the lead pipe issue should happen with the streets and the water structure if possible, but I understand the importance of making sure we hit childcare and where families and children are living first, if that also has to be one of those priorities. It's an important thing to do. I hope we can find other ways of financing this, because if we build it, they'll come. If we get that infrastructure in place, the housing's ready to go. We don't have to deal with TIF because the infrastructure's there. If we get that infrastructure in place, the businesses are ready to come in. We don't have to deal with TIF because we got the infrastructure ready for them.
So a quick follow-up to that. You talked about a kind of triad of issues around aging infrastructure, the need for housing, the need for childcare, the role that the city plays within all of that. How can we grow our city's top line to help get there to meet those demands? Do you have any ideas of how we can grow revenue for the city, maybe outside of property tax levies.
Right. I've been trying to explore that. I've been reaching out to folks in the banking community, folks at the chamber, counselors, and asking about some of those ideas. I don't know a whole lot about budget and possibilities, although I've done a lot of grant work and written those and know how to manage budgets. But I think the possibility of bonding we shouldn't let go of that possibility. We're going to need to step up. I want us to be an example at the local level of what we can do together. And bonding may be like the bonding for 429 might work. There might be other venture capital ideas. There is money in town if people are interested. I think we should explore the possibility of how there are other ways to do this besides putting pressure on folks that are on single income. We don't want to raise their taxes so high that they end up moving out, because then we have another issue to deal with.
Thank you. Diane, the next question has to do with the right to repair. The City Council, the Duluth Tenants Union, haven't seen eye to eye on the steps that can be taken to repair rental units that need repairs. Voters, of course, are going to get a chance to weigh in on November 4th. I have a couple of questions about the issue. First one is just overall, what is your position on the right to repair initiative?
Well, this is really important. You don't get 6,000 signatures, more votes than I had in an election, and say it's not an issue. So obviously it's an issue, and thank goodness that was the way for this is democracy at work, right? Folks brought that before the council, and the council started to try to figure out the best way to solve the problem. And they started doing it by creating some new ordinances with education. But I have talked to many people on this issue. I actually swung back and forth. Do I support it? Don't I support it? At this point, it's going to ballot, and so it will be voted on. I support it. It's a very small amount. I think it gives renters some sense of power that they can fix a screen door, they can fix a lock, and just get it done. It's not a large amount that would be putting pressure on landlords. But education is going to still be a huge thing. So when I'm knocking on doors, I'm educating folks that, voting, there's a primary August 12th. Telling renters, guess what? You can fix that faucet. We now have an ordinance in place. We're going to have to work on that, just like the ordinance that the city council passed to say there are ways to get this done. We need to put more pressure on our landlords that are not keeping housing up to snuff and not waiting for their the finances or their fees, or they're not getting things done, and then they just pay penalty fees at the end of the year. They need to get it done on time, and I think the life safety staff is going to be key there.
I also want to ask about the process that was used for this issue, the petition and gathering the signatures, coming to the council, rather than the usual way, where citizens go to their elected official. Their elected official on their behalf comes up with an ordinance or comes up with a resolution, and then it's voted on by the council. Do you see more petitions coming, or do you think that that's the right way or the appropriate way to be going about tackling issues?
No, I'm disappointed that it went to ballot. I wished it could have happened a different way, because here's why. When you create an ordinance by ballot, you vote that in and it becomes ordinance. What if you want to tweak it? What if it should be a little more? What if it's not quite working? You can then work with the community and amend those ordinances a little more easily. When it's voted by ballot, it'll have to go back to ballot. So then you spend money on that, and you need to change it that way. So if we can avoid that, listen to folks as they come with signatures, I just think it helps in the long run with just all of the work and the time and the expense that has to happen to make an ordinance, and then to deal with trying to tweak it as you move forward, because we're going to learn what works and what doesn't work as these ordinances move forward.
Thanks.
So many more questions on this, but as a teaser, we'll have that for tomorrow with our forum there, because we won't just keep putting you on the spot with those questions, because we could. Lots of questions. Like downtowns across the country, especially since the pandemic, ours is transforming. but Duluth never wants to be status quo. We have the Duluth model for a variety of different powerful solutions and things that we've done in the past, literally named the Duluth model. What's your vision for downtown? How do you propose getting us there? Because it's not good enough for us to just say, well, it's also happening here and here and here, and it's not quite as bad as it is there. So what is your vision for downtown?
Like my big dream?
Take it to go macro to micro. Take it big and then bring us on home.
Let's go macro. So you got Canal Park and you got downtown. You got Lake and you've got Fifth. Wouldn't it be really cool if it would be really wonderful to walk or bike across those connections and have more greens around and have it more accessible to people than cars? So that connection then would spread out not only our tourist industry more because it'd be more inviting, but for those of us who live here, we can come downtown while everybody's in Canal Park, which a lot of us avoid Canal Park often in the tourist season, and we don't want to. I see, having watched Lincoln Park grow through these years, I think we can follow a very similar pattern, with using some of these empty spaces as housing, which we're doing. We should be very positive about that. And then work on businesses coming. And I really, truly believe businesses are ready to come, but we have some fixes we're working on, and we're moving in a very positive direction. It takes time. But we are a regional connection for those who are suffering from homelessness, who are unsheltered, who many of us it can happen to because of one incident. We're all on the edge. 60% of our community is living on an unaffordable wage. 40% of our folks are unsheltered. Now, 40% of our folks are renters. Many of the folks that are unsheltered are dealing with mental health and substance abuse issues. And we have ways that we can do that. And the Stepping On Up project and program is working well, and we should celebrate what we have done. Back Door, Plover Place, One Roof has had Bayview. Center City's got 2 or 3 different places going. So there are movements happening toward that. So once we get that organized and educate folks, we can slow down some of those police calls, make it more safe, bring community together. The businesses will come.
Good.
Chuck, can I ask a follow-up?
Yeah. Oh, you go ahead. Sure.
Yeah, thanks. And I know we're going to continue with downtown, but your engineering background, I'm interested in drilling in a little bit. So we'll set aside safety until the next question, but talking about getting people moving throughout the downtown proper, having some housing options. We know that conversions of underutilized buildings can be very expensive. There are things that we are working on at the state level, but we can focus on the city level here. Any ideas as to things we could change with the code or with construction services that would help make some of these projects pencil out so that they will get built so that we can house the people. We just saw the Maxfield study, the housing study. If you're not familiar with it, I encourage you to read it. We need a lot of housing units. We need housing of every single different type. What can we do at the city level to get housing in the areas that are comp plan designated for more density? That's Kenwood, that's Woodland, that's downtown. So in the downtown, what can we do as a city to get more housing in some of these beautiful buildings that we have that are just too expensive to convert?
So you mentioned the comprehensive plan, and the comprehensive plan is a good plan, and it is now being updated every 10 years, which is great. And we have focused on areas of where we want housing to go. Some of the work I did with the city was to look at our open spaces and our urban spaces, right? And we want to move the pipe a little bit, but not so far that we outtax ourselves. We have a lot of places to do infill and redevelopment. These buildings that are going to be trickier, I don't know a lot about architecture and what it's going to take. I have heard a lot that permitting is been tricky for folks, and I think it's a communication problem. I saw it happen. Everybody sees it happen in their businesses. I saw it happen too at City Hall. And I worked really hard, even though I was in parks, to make sure I was talking to planning and engineering and so on as we were looking at every parcel across the city. I used to go to sleep and see parcels in my sleep about where would be best to make sure that we're developing for commercial and housing, and where to make sure that we have those open spaces and trails for our community. So I think we can do it. I think we need to improve that by better communication within the staff, and then looking at the UDC, which is the Unified Development Code, which is the code that really tells you the do's and don'ts. Once you have a plan, you have actions, and you say, now this is how you have to do those actions. And there are improvements. I heard Councilor Dominic talking about, we've got a group working on that right now on really looking at some of the details about that, about enhancing that to make it easier to get your permits done, get things going, and get things moving.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question. Thank you very much, Diane, for, we're hitting you from both sides here, so we appreciate your thoughtful answers. Well, I wanted to ask next about crime and public safety, maybe guns and gun control if you'd like. But how can the city do a better job of ensuring that residents and visitors alike are not only safe, of course we want everyone to be safe, but also that we feel safe no matter where we go in the city? Often crime is associated with downtown, but it's not just downtown, of course. So what can the city be doing better?
First of all, I've seen a couple incidents in the last week that the police have had to handle that have been more violent. And, thank you, police officers, for the work you do. And thanks to fire for the emergency service work they do. It's really, really important. I think downtown, I go downtown every day in the morning and watch folks come out of the shelter. And I think to some folks, it's a perceived safety. Most of it is perceived. There's a small percentage of our community that are just violent and bad, and we should take care of that. But we can work on the perceived issues with education and information, and encouraging folks to come down for events, trying to enhance that social fabric. As I heard Jordan Johnson talk a lot about today, I've been volunteering with CHUM and stepping on up to provide that kind of education and information so people can learn and understand that. I am really grateful to the businesses who are hanging on and staying there on First Street. But we need to move faster to get folks housed, sheltered, and services. And the Union Gospel Mission is our next one, because if the Union Gospel Mission gets the services, CHUM has the shelter, then we can start working folks into transitional housing. Most people want to be housed. I can't believe anybody would choose to be in their cars or be unhoused. Many of them need services related to mental health and substance abuse, and we can give them choices to move forward. And I think that doing that will help our community as a whole. I don't know if I answered your question.
It's a very difficult question. There's just so much.
Yeah.
But maybe touch on what are some of the things we're doing well as far as addressing crime and addressing the perceptions of safety.
Yeah, I think our officers are doing a great job, and they should be in place. What my goal is to reduce the number of calls they have. I guess the best example I get is the St. Marcos apartments I went in, right? If the folks that have a drinking problem or an alcohol problem could go there, they can live there, you can live your life. And the calls reduced immensely. And we probably need to do the same for those who are dealing with substance abuse. Shelter comes first. If you don't have shelter, you don't have any sense of who you are and security to be able to move your life forward. You're just living day to day. And so if we can take that anchor off them and help them move forward with the services and the CHUM and stepping on up, we should be very, very great. The city is grateful to their partners and the county we have to do this together as a region and as a group. We can't do it alone, and I think everybody's working really well on that together.
Thank you.
Diane, you're doing a nice job of answering questions citywide, and you will be a city councilor voting on citywide issues, but you are running for District 2. Can you tell us, first of all, can you define what District 2 is for us? The geographic boundaries of it, and then share with us your vision for the district, how you propose getting there, most promising part about it, and most challenging part about it. So define it for us, vision, and then best parts and biggest challenges.
Yeah, so I mentioned this a little bit earlier. District 2, yeah, it is really interesting to get to know your district shapes, let alone, land parcels. District 2 it holds both our college campuses, UMD, St. Scholastica. It's got elementary school, Congdon. It's the Indian neighborhood, the Hillside neighborhood, the Congdon neighborhood, but it also goes up into the Kenwood neighborhood and out into more of the rural, larger lot areas. It includes the neighborhood behind the Vineyard, if those of you who are familiar with the Safe Bay issue, and it's got some funky lines. So that's kind of the district. The issues are that I hear about, mostly just door knocking, are related to the open spaces, related to housing, because we also deal with a lot of the college housing issues and the rentals and so on. I've been hearing a little bit more about more Airbnbs and bed and breakfasts going in, and people are worried about traffic and things like that. What was the other part of your question you wanted me to address?
The most promising assets of it and the biggest.
Yeah. So promising assets. One of the things that District 2 has is they have a lot of those larger historic homes in the district. And it's exciting to see people being creative about maintaining these places. I always bow to the folks that maintain these large mansions that were built back in the day. But there are multifamily owners buying these. There are 2 or 3 families coming together and buying. Some of these mansions had 2 or 3 lots. Some of those lots are being sold for redevelopment. That is a perfect opportunity for infill and redevelopment to add other housing. We have folks that are in larger housing that are going to need options to move out. And so looking at places where we can have more senior housing is going to be important to keep families together.
I've got a quick follow-up. So we talked a little bit about the comprehensive plan, and in there were 12 areas that were designated for more density as we consider our landlocked city. A couple of those areas are in District 2. There have been some proposals brought forward. How do you plan to synthesize the information that comes to you and make a determination on the need for housing and the neighbor that opposes it because it's going to bring more traffic flow? And I think about Bluestone and lifelong Duluthian. That was going to be a freeway going through there. And as kids who live by UMD, we were going to be playing Frogger to get across the street. And it's been a wonderful asset to our community. So how do you balance those things as a district councilor?
By listening a lot, having folks get together to share their ideas, not just their concerns, but how do we move forward through this? Supporting what the comprehensive plan says, because that's the community coming together as a democracy, and it goes through the commissions, it goes through the council, and it's approved, which means those are actions we've all approved to happen. So as density comes in, we talk about, I'm actually excited that we have a transportation commission. Thank you, councilors who are out there that voted that in, because I think that commission will be really helpful in looking at those types, because often that's the biggest fear. Oh my gosh, there's going to be so much traffic. Who's coming to these neighborhoods, blah, blah, blah. And once it's built, it's usually fine. It's getting through those first level of fears, and having people express those fears can mean all the difference in the world, because you express them, you share them, and then you say, okay, let's sit down and figure this out.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you. Well, getting things built is kind of the focus of our next question, which has to do with economic development. The city has sometimes been criticized for offering TIF, for offering other financial incentives or other support to encourage development, whether industry or housing or what have you. And sometimes those haven't turned out the way we envisioned. There was the apartment building in Lincoln Park Craft District, of course, that was converted to partly a boutique hotel. Of course, the development at the central site on top of the hill. Those are just a couple of examples. How can the city council ensure that city resources are being used responsibly to encourage economic development and the development that Duluth needs to grow?
We need to know our developers well. We need to do good contracts, which they did, because that contracted incline did come back and we did not lose any money there. However, we did have some history on that developer. So hindsight, we need to think about those things. Maybe we shouldn't go so big. We should break the incline area up into smaller areas for development. TIF is a tool. It's a tool that can be useful. I'd like to see some studies, since Essentia's come in, I'd like to see some studies about what the economic outflow has been. So are we starting to see more smaller businesses come in to support Essentia? Are we seeing other businesses come in to support Sofitel? Everybody needs toilet paper. So if we had to use TIF because we thought they weren't going to be able to build and we aren't supporting that, I'm kind of the opposite nature, that I think that they could afford to do the things they need to do and support the work we're doing. Where housing is a little different, TIF might be a good tool there because it's a little bit harder to develop or redevelop some of these areas. And that's where the city really needs to be able to push that tool. But there are other tools. And so I don't want to always lay everything on TIF. Again, we need to think about bonding. We need to think about where our city budget's at as we plan forward and prioritize where those projects are going to be.
Good, thank you. Gotcha.
You mentioned the Vineyard area, being a part of District 2 and Safe Bay there. And I want to preface the question by saying, seeing people live in encampments or unsheltered or in cars is gut-wrenching and heartbreaking. I say that on a personal level. I say that in seeing that. My dad was the first director of, it wasn't even director at the time, coordinator of the Damiano before he worked at St. Luke's. And so it's something that I care about and I think we as a community care about. And yet there are issues that come from having unsheltered populations. So we know we need more housing. But before we're there, where are we doing a good job of addressing encampments and homelessness and things like that? And where do we need to do more? Or where can we do better? Where are we falling short on an issue that I think a lot of people agree around, but get pitted in two areas? Everybody that I talk to agrees, we need to find a solution to it. It's a complex problem. There's empathy there. But we can't continue as we are because it's not working. The unsheltered aren't safe and the people around there have safety issues as well. And so where do we find solutions there?
I'm glad you mentioned the unsheltered aren't safe. They actually feel less safe than people like you and I. I think every day we're trying to find solutions to helping folks who are in such need. I'm happy to say that Safe Bay has been successful and that folks have actually found housing as a result, because one thing bringing people either to Safe Bay or to the shelter areas or to the service areas helps is you get to know those folks and you get to understand those folks. It takes time. It takes time to build the trust for them to be able to open up and figure out where they need to go. And so where do we need more help? We always need more help in the services and the mental health services that are out there for folks, because every day I bow again to the folks that are working on the street issues, the Deb Holmans of the world. And I know we've hired a couple more who are out there every day talking to these individuals, working with them, building that trust. I know that even at LSS, where the youth are staying, it can take a couple years for youth to start to find that trust in that individual before they can start to say, I'm ready to move forward. So we need to help them buy that time by giving them the shelter they need, those basic services of food, shelter, and clothing before they can move forward. But, if you don't have the heart about it, but you're thinking about the money, it costs less than doing this emergency service do loop where they're in emergency services, the police have to go out, they go to jail, or they go to this and back, and we're just stuck. I think we're trying to get ourselves unstuck. We're doing well. There are positive things happening. There's just a lot of folks out there that need help.
Maybe, thank you for answering that. A two-pronged question. Are encampments in neighborhoods okay? Because that's something that we hear a lot about. Why aren't folks at the Damiano? Why aren't they at Chum? So are encampments in neighborhoods okay? And where should, you mentioned giving, should people be giving to a specific organization rather than to individuals?
Boy, you're really nailing me here, Matt. I think people should be giving to organizations rather than individuals, because as organizations, we can leverage that money differently and leverage grants. And I don't know if you're getting to the panhandling situation or not. Say no. Okay. So
to be more cohesion between the service providers, and that's where I was getting at with that.
Yeah, definitely. I think the communications is going well there. And I don't have much more to add, I don't think.
Just on encampments in neighborhoods, as they've kind of popped up. Yeah.
Thank you for that. My brain's getting full. Encampments in public spaces shouldn't be happening. And it shouldn't be happening in our neighborhood anyway, because we just don't have the weather to keep people out in the cold. And it's cold more than it's warm to be sleeping out at night. And we don't have the facilities. So we want to encourage folks to come to the spaces they need. Some can't stay in shelters because it's too overwhelming and they're very packed in. So I understand they need those spaces. But I don't think it should be something where you slap a ticket on them. That's not it. We just got to keep working to get them sheltered.
Good. Thank you very much. There's just one more question before we allow you to wrap up. This one has to do with businesses facing the challenge of filling jobs, finding qualified quality employees, and their inability to line up care for their children. What more would you as a city councilor do to ensure that childcare options, affordable options, are here and are readily available?
Thank you for that question. This is a high priority issue too for, I think, all of us in the chamber. Again, I had mentioned earlier, as far as economic development goes, housing and childcare are number one, because again, if it's there, they're going to come. If it's not, they're going to struggle and try to figure out how they can get some of their employees to come here. I'm about to be a grandparent, so in December, so I'm back to thinking about these childcare issues as a whole different way. It's especially in a community where living wages are hard. And a lot of folks working in the service industry, which we know we have a lot of because we are a tourist economy, means they don't have health care, and they're working on an hourly rate, and they're working for tips. So we need to continue to try to help fund and support people who want to provide childcare with good paying jobs. That's critical, but we also have the ability to build community around this whole kind of volunteer idea I talked about. And daycare is having seniors come in to spend time with the kids and volunteer their time and help them with some of those things that they need, and also help build community by reading and assisting and just loving our children and making sure that we have a lot of good adults in their life that can mentor them as they grow and move forward. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Yeah, that was fantastic. And absolutely, early childcare and education, anything that would get a return on investment of 16 to 1, you'd be in the market like that. And yet with early childcare and education, we struggle. And congrats to you and Andrew on being grandparents. That's huge. Absolutely huge.
Thank you.
So I want to thank everybody for bearing with us in this format that we weren't anticipating, especially Diane, who did a fantastic job. Fantastic job.
I know you were making up questions as we were going.
Filling the time. No, you did a great job with Chuck and I on both sides of you, and thank you for bearing with us. Encouraging everybody to vote before or on November 4th. You can check the DNT's website if you want to rewatch something. Look for those endorsements. And with that, Diane, I'll give you a minute and a half or however long you'd like for closing remarks. And again, thank you for bearing with us in a format we weren't anticipating.
Well, thank you, and thank you for putting up with just me up here. I really enjoyed this forum today. I'm going to just briefly say again why I'm running. I'm running to support our economy and encourage local investment in attracting new Martin kids. I'm running to help strengthen our social fabric by working to unleash the power of volunteers in our public spaces and neighborhoods. I'm running to protect our environment for the services that they provide, including our health, happiness, and the importance of ecological diversity. And I don't want us to lose that. I've managed projects and written land use plans and natural resource plans for local governments. I've helped develop commissions. I've written ordinances. These democratic processes are driven by public input. There are no shortcuts in writing good policy, and especially good policy that's sound, just, and equitable. And we have the ability to educate and inform folks on what these policies are. We need to include built-in incentives to encourage folks to work with us on these and move forward on whatever the ordinance is. And then we also need to enforce them for folks that just don't want to do that. And that's really important too, because those are all steps that take place in how we handle a community of us coming together to share resources and saying these are important to us as a community. Educate and inform, incentivize ourselves to do things, and then enforce where we need to. So let's implement those plans. Let's implement those actions and move forward to build a better economy. People say, thank you so much for running. And I'm like, no, thank you for supporting me. I'm up here front, but it's important that I'm listening to you. And it's all of us that are going to make this happen, because we all do better when we all do better, right? As Paul Wellstone said. So thank you.
Yeah. And truly, thank you for running. Thank you for running.